So did we decide we're going to get a seminar 101 on assessment and assessment values? That was really interesting this morning.
It was. I went in the next room and called Mavis and was explaining a little bit of it to her. I don't think it's quite as complicated as Vern was making it. In any case, Mark Armstrong loves to talk about it, and I think he does so in words that everybody can understand.
Yeah,
I've
he's
seen
great
about that, and really, a lot of the things he said, people don't know that. They think something affects their taxes, and it affects their taxes, but not because of what we do in many cases.
Yeah.
I was giving her
I thought example. It was.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I like to use the two-house county. Our houses are worth exactly the same thing, but you go in and protest your taxes and you win, and they cut your value in half. The levy doesn't change, but my taxes go up and yours go down.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Now, the impact of
the
reduction is less when you've got thousands of homes, but yeah, and when the county did not take the new growth for the first 4 years of Mr. Lausen's term, technically people's taxes would go down at the county level because assessments were increasing because of new construction, but the levy didn't change.
And so if you have 1 million houses and 999,000 of them burned down, the one that's left has to pay the taxes.
Yes.
The full amount.
Yes. And lest you think that is a fanciful situation, one of the reasons why special service areas that are based on ad valorem, that is assessed value, become dangerous is that, so let's say you got a brand new subdivision and there's a special service area tax that in theory, if every house was built, would be $1,000 a lot. And you've got 100 lots. But if you're the first person to build your house, now you've got full value on your lot, and the other 99 lots are vacant. And so they're being assessed as vacant land. When the special service area assessment of $100,000, you're going to be paying all of it on your one house. And that's why a lot of municipalities have changed from what they call ad valorem to rate method, which is each lot pays, say, $100, regardless of what's on it. It sounds like it's not as fair, but there were subdivisions when the recession hit and a few people had built houses and the rest, were foreclosed and vacant. And those people found themselves paying a huge amount of special service taxes because of the way they were calculated.
Gilbert's did.
Yeah.
Yes, that happened in Gilbert's. I think it happened in Hampshire.
Hampshire, by the way, Hampshire is building a new middle school too. Or no, I think in elementary. We did that in transportation, right, Drew?
Yeah.
They reduced speed limit out on Big Timber Road.
When we were talking about closing old high schools, I don't really know of any out here that have closed, right? They're always building new ones. But, as I say, I remember when there was a new Trier West. I remember when there were 4 Niles Township high schools.
Kenneth?
Yes?
You have to stop talking.
Sorry. It's now 10
Call the
o'clock.
meeting to order.
All right.
We want, there's no roll call, but we'll have a roll call.
Brown,
Brown here.
Frost,
Braz here.
Hopi, Leonard,
Leonard here.
Sanchez,
Sanchez present.
Allen, Shepro,
Shepro present.
Kenyon.
Here.
Okay.
So we need a unanimous consent. motion
Request,
For the
I
minutes.
could request unanimous consent.
Is everybody's in favor of that? We're gonna move along. For the public comment, I see 4 people out there, but no. I won't talk about biodiesel because I wanted to talk about how clean it is, but I didn't like the thing the biodiesel people put but all this is a visual that they don't prove that it's cleaner. If you know what I'm trying to say, it just looks cleaner. Let's go to the Kane County Farm Bureau so Mr. Arnold can get done and get out of here.
Thank you,
Take care of you.
Thank you, Mr. Kenyon. I won't be quite as direct, but I do have a meeting in Hampshire at 11, so I appreciate being early on the agenda. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Van Kerkhoff for sharing information with us, us being the Kane County Farm Bureau, on the proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance. He came to our July meeting and shared that information. We will put it in our publication next month and hopefully be able to link it in September, those text amendments through a QR code or some other method, so that our members can see them directly and comment on them. Just a really brief report. It's been a busy month, particularly the last week or 10 days with the county fair. Our not-for-profit foundation did several fundraisers at the county fair, and we saw a lot of people. We did a scholarship recognition ceremony. We had 18 scholarships that we awarded this year, $27,000. And Friday, the 15th of July, we recognized the scholars along with some of our major donors at an event at the King County Cougars. And just a brief update on our Prairie Pollinator rain garden. We have proceeded to the design stage. We are debating, given the timing of some of our grant funds are supposed to be spent by the end of July. End of July is not a great time to be planting. So we're going to work with those donors and see if we can't push off the planting date into mid-September when temperatures hopefully start to moderate a little bit. I am pleased to announce that last Friday we got a call from Open Lands, and we did get a $10,000 grant from the ComEd Green Region Grant Program. So that's going to help a lot with the installation. And given the timing of the planting and the methods that we have for communicating with our members, we don't know if we will have that information in time for publication, because we only publish our King County Farmer on a monthly basis, but we will notify people by direct mail or telephone calls that have indicated that they want to help with that public planting, and through our website. And we'll probably post a Facebook event to try to get folks out there. So that concludes my report, unless the chair has something. I thought you had the questioning look on your face.
I thought when I left the fair Saturday night, I just couldn't believe the lines of people to get in. And I thought it was pretty crowded. I left at 7 o'clock, and there was long lines at both entrances and people on the road coming in. So they had to have record attendance.
2022 was the best weather that I ever recall for a county fair. Was just nice, mild temperatures and cool breezes, and other than a major lightning strike on Friday afternoon, which we believe struck the cell phone tower on our property, but it shut a lot of things down at the fairgrounds, at least temporarily. But there always has to be a major storm roll through during a county fair. That's one of nature's rules. So
Yeah. But I thought there was just so many people, and it's good to see people out trying to have fun.
And I apologize for taking my leave, but I do have a meeting in Hampshire at 11, so.
Goodbye. Don't let the door hit you. Okay, well, let's hear from Northern Illinois Food Bank. Chris Mortensen.
Thank you, everyone. And I also want to just extend my gratitude for being invited to this meeting. I am covering for Tracy Kelsey, who is your point of contact for the advocacy committee from Northern Illinois Food Bank. She has just announced her leave, so I'll be your new point of contact in the interim. So without any further ado, there are several updates as we have just ended our fiscal year 22 and just outlined some of our goals for fiscal year 23. With that exciting intro, let me get down to some of the more flashy bullet points. So in fiscal year 22, we provided over 78 million meals, 27% of the meals distributed throughout the entire year was consistent of produce. So if you think about that, if you were to receive, 100 pounds of food, 27% of that food, or 27 pounds, would be a fresh produce, which we are really excited about. And we also wanted to say thank you for farmers. That's not an easy load, and we have you guys to thank for part of that. 10.2 million meals were distributed in Kane County alone.
Chris, can you?
Sorry. Yes.
Somebody's making noise in your background and interfering with you. Tell
Oh,
your
my
office
goodness.
to shut up.
I love your enthusiasm. I'm actually out of the office, so these are public people. I cannot tell them to be quiet, but I will try perhaps to give them a little bit more distance. Can you hear me okay?
It's not that good.
It's not preferable? Okay.
Not as good as we really want to hear you, and it's not that good.
Okay. I apologize. If you would like to move to a different partner, I can try and move or go outside, but I'm limited in where.
Continue.
Okay.
We'll suffer on.
Thank you. So 10.2 million meals were distributed in Kane County alone. And then we were serving on average 375,000 neighbors last year. This year, what we've seen in the past few months, we're up to 400,000 meals per month, which is just massive, right? And then if you want to compare it or think about it to pre-pandemic levels, we were holding around 285,000 meals. So roughly 115,000 more meals for neighbors being served monthly. So what does that mean for our fiscal year? It means that we went from 100 million meals during the pandemic. A lot of that was we were receiving a great deal of help from federal government with TFAP foods, and we are now serving or have served 78 million meals for the fiscal year of 22. For our goal for this year, for 23, is holding steady at 78, 79. A lot of that has to do with the budget that we just proposed and got passed for this year. So this also implies that we are serving more neighbors monthly, but providing less food compared to previous years. So I think everyone who works with food is facing similar challenges, that those being supply chain problems, inflated costs, and just food costs going up as well. So we too are facing similar challenges. So me being new to this committee, I'm excited to learn what it is that you're doing well and seeing if we can take some of those practices and adopt them to our culture. So those are the big highlights that I wanted to share with you all today.
Thank you. We're going to have a food drive here at Kane County to help you out. Once it kicks off in August. You know about that? Did they tell you?
Yeah, no, if you have a meeting date, I will set aside the entire day and help you set up and
the chairman
cheer
has
you guys
gotten
on.
with it. And we are going to compete with the Judicial Center to see if we can gather more food than they do. So
that sounds really exciting. If you need
No,
help, like I said,
could be
I will
fun.
be there. Oh no, it will be fun. You guys have a good sense of humor, so I know it'll be fun.
Do anybody have any questions? No questions? Where's Deborah? Deborah Allen?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and I do have a question. I think the first thing you said was you thanked the farmers for their contributions. Are you still collecting milk from farmers, and are you still trying to emphasize fresh produce as best as you can? Or is that part of the supply chain meltdown also?
Thank you for that question. That's very perceptive. Yes, we have seen increase in costs, particularly with produce, protein, and dairy. We are working with Prairie farms to source our eggs and dairy, along with some variations of butter. And those costs have gone up, and we're passing those on. Well, we're eating most of the cost and passing on a little bit of an increase in price to our agencies. The produce, to illustrate how committed we are to helping serve our agencies and the neighbors that they serve, we this year are going into our own reserves to take out, if I'm not mistaken, $8 million, so we can continue to provide free produce for all agencies. And so that's something that we're committed to, but we recognize it's becoming more difficult. To speak to that point, I'm in a meeting next week with Community Grows, or Community Works program, or Garden Works program rather, to help see if we can't work with community gardens and help bolster community gardens in agencies or on agency plots of land, so that way they can be growing their own produce and getting a couple thousand pounds of food if they have the capacity. So I'm trying to look at all options to insulate agencies from a drought of food, for lack of better words.
Congratulations on making such a major donation, but the problem is that you can't eat up your reserves too much either. We're having a food drive. We're going to try and help a little. Thanks.
Are there any
I
other,
very much appreciate that.
any
Thank
other
you.
comments? We don't have Mavis Bates on. What's wrong, Mavis? Well, we count on a few people, but she is, but she's quiet.
I'm here. I'm listening. Everything sounds great. I am concerned that how does the supply chain affect local food? Is it fertilizer?
Is that a question directed towards me or towards the group as a whole?
Anybody who wants to answer.
Everything comes by truck.
Okay.
Unless you bring it in the back of an SUV. Everything has to be transported.
Okay.
Well, at the fair, when they were cooking sweet corn, that came from Meyer, and Meyer had to buy it from Maryland. And because our corn wasn't ready yet. I didn't buy any because it was $4 an ear.
A year or a dollar?
What?
$1 an ear?
Four. Well, everything's gone up. If I noticed milk has gone up in the grocery store too. This damn dairy farmer's making too much money. Just
If I
think where
may-
we'd be if we didn't have the Northern Illinois Food Bank. We'd be in really, really big trouble.
Yeah, there'd be a lot of
If-
people suffering.
If I may contribute to that point about the transportation, there we are anticipating losing more bids for contracts for purchasing food because the logistics chain is prohibitive for the bidding party to want to come out to us. So an example of this might be we send out a bid for, I'll just stick with corn, a truckload of corn. While we may have been able to source corn from Minnesota or Iowa, they no longer are able to ship to us because the cost is prohibitive to send it our way. So we are having to now find new sources of food and distributors that are willing to work with us, or not even willing, to be able to work with us based on the bid. Yeah.
Well, like, if there are no other questions, we'll move. Something I read. Currently, the president is trying to stop a strike on the railroad because 40% of what we get comes by the railroad. And if you shut the railroads down, but by the way, they've been negotiating a contract for 2 years. and they've had tremendous layoffs. So we could be in real trouble if the federal government didn't step in and stop the strike. But anyway, let's move on to our friend Mark Van Kerkhoff. You still are our friend, aren't you?
I hope so. Thank you this morning. This is a repeat of a memo and presentation also given at Development Committee earlier this week. And coming to this committee because the proposed text amendments to the zoning ordinance do affect our local growers and agritourism. We are taking a look at this as a staff to propose draft amendments for two main reasons. One is for our local growers. Our Growing for Kane work and grants have been so successful in multiplying our local growers that we get new ones coming in or existing ones that want to expand to do different things. And we're finding that they're running into some of the provisions of our zoning ordinance that are no longer up to date or friendly towards local food growers. So that's one category of change. The other category of change is in adding language and definitions for our agritourism and other more public-facing agricultural businesses. We currently have quite a few of them under our F2 zoning, which is our ag-related business, but there is not language specifically in that F2 section talking about agritourism. So we've been looking at some of the best language practices in the area and looking at refining that. Some of those early drafts are what Steve Arnold was referring to. I got some really good input from the Farm Bureau Board, as well as a number of them head nodding or commenting that they could see how these changes would help farmers that they know. One recent example, one of our grant award recipients from last month also got a grant from another private source for building a farm stand. Only our zoning ordinance prohibits farm stands on parcels of less than 5 acres. So they went through our zoning board and got a variance in order to do that. And that's one of the things we're hoping to change and make the whole process easier for small farm producers to do that. There's a schedule on there. This month, we're just sort of introducing the idea. Next month, we'll be bringing some of those draft text amendments to you, asking for Development Committee and your concurrence that we send this to the zoning board and ask them to schedule a public hearing. The newsletter article that Steve Arnold is sharing and will also share in Kane County Connects will just help us, get comments and input in the process. And then hoping to have that go through the county board schedule. So the things are all set for this fall. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
I'd like to thank you for your continued work trying to make things better. And I don't think you'll get this everywhere. We don't. And you don't get somebody who comes out and brings this to the farmers and say, hey, what do you guys think? This Kane County is really unique, and you're part of that, Mark.
Well, I have a great team. I want to thank Tony Ferrugia, who originally joined us on the zoning team, and he's since transitioned to be part of our agricultural and planning team. So he really used his background with the APA and working on things to research some of the text amendment changes. We've had numerous meetings with our team, Matt Tansley and Janice Hill and our zoning team, kind of bring together all these things. We also have been pushed by some of our local growers and businesses. You've had a few of them come through the zoning process for new businesses. And every time they come to one of our staff meetings, they're bringing new ideas and innovations that we're looking to incorporate and respond to. So I appreciate your comments, but it's really a great team effort.
Adapting the new ideas. Some people can't take new ideas. Now we have Jody Wolnick.
Good morning. I wait for Blair to pull up the PowerPoint.
Should I comment about Jody? Our friends to the north of us in McHenry think we have the best water resource lady in the whole state. They want to use her talents to help improve things.
If you're talking about the McHenry County Farm Bureau, they have already utilized our
Yes,
talents.
they're using
In
her
the past
talents, but
tense.
here we are. Kane County is always number one.
We have a very exciting project to give you some background information on today. And it really speaks to the long-term efforts of the Kane County Department of Environmental and Water Resources, working with other municipalities and improving our network of drainage districts, reactivating drainage districts, and how over many, many years, all those efforts can come together with a great project. So this is the Village of Big Rock DCEO grant. Oh. Can I advance the slides, Blair? Oops, that's my problem all the time. I never check the power. Oh, there we go. Thank you. So just to orientate you, Big Rock being on the west side, Route 30 runs through east-west, and then Welch Creek is to the east, as you see just past Doberman Road. So the Big Rock Drainage District was reactivated with our technical assistance in 2009. That district had been inactive since the 1950s, and there were some severe drainage issues in that district that the residents and farmers wanted to address. They are an elected drainage district board, so that is not one of the boards that we appoint as part of our drainage district appointments. And it does serve approximately 1,400 acres of farmland. You can see in the yellow circle, that is the watershed that is served by the Big Rock Drainage District. They don't have any open channels in their drainage district like some of our drainage districts do. They are 100% drain tile. And on this map, you see the red and green lines. Those are the drain tile lines that are owned and maintained by the Big Rock Drainage District. One of the biggest challenges and the beginning of this project was an issue created by IDOT a long time back, in that the collection of all the storm drainage from Route 30, which flows very fast during a storm event, is actually connected into the Big Rock Drainage District agricultural tile. And because of this, not only is the tile not able to handle the silt and sediment and debris coming in from IDOT storm sewer, so they have blowouts and issues with the drain tile as a result of that. But also the drain tile wasn't sized to handle surface flow. Basically, as an agricultural tile, there's no surface inlets into it. So the water comes in slowly as the water soaks into the ground and finds its way into the agricultural tile. Whereas directly connecting storm drainage and developed urban drainage into a drain tile is going to result in overwhelming that drain tile, which results in flooding of the farm fields in the Big Rock Drainage District until such time as the IDOT storm sewer drains down. And then finally, at that point, the agricultural drain tile can allow those farm drains to drain. So key to this project, and we have been looking at this for many years to try to disconnect that IDOT Route 30 drainage and the drainage from any of the industries and businesses along Route 30 from the agricultural system and have their own storm sewer system that would convey that water to the creek. So historically going back, this is an article from 1989 and shows some of the flooding that was occurring way back when, as well as some air photos from some recent floods to show you the extent of the agricultural flooding that occurs in this district because of this inadequate storm sewer system.
Where's that picture of? Is
That is of the gas station at the corner of Route 30 and I'm drawing a blank. What's the western road?
the one going north?
Yeah,
It's amazing. Look at the water.
I know. Yeah, the whole gas station floods, so. So interestingly enough, Mr. Paul Shook, the previous director of our department, drew up a concept plan in 1996 after significant floods occurred in 89 and again in 1993. To try to separate that IDOT drainage. He proposed a storm sewer along the north side of Route 30 to Welch Creek with a 36-inch diameter pipe. And here we are today with the BLA report that proposed almost an identical storm sewer on the north side of 30. Only the last segment of the pipe was 42-inch instead of 36-inch. So Paul Shook was on the right track in 1996. And here we are a long time later, 25 years later. So looking at the same design. So in 2020, the Office of Community Reinvestment and Kane County Department of Environmental and Water Resources worked with the Village of Big Rock Township, Big Rock Road District, the Big Rock Drainage District, and Illinois Association of Drainage Districts to submit an application for the Rebuild Illinois funds for this project. And excitingly, on June 7th, there was an announcement from the governor's office that Big Rock was one of 34 communities and was awarded the full amount that was requested, which was $1.966 million, including a $350,000 match from the village, district, and township. Currently, the Office of Community Reinvestment, who's going to do the administration on behalf of the Village of Big Rock for the project, is working with the village to complete all the award forms in a very complicated GATA system that the state uses. So we're working through that process with them. And then our department will be assisting the village with the procurement documents to get an engineer on board. And certainly time is of the essence because the Doberman Road project will be going out to bid this fall to begin construction in spring. And we need to get them the elevations of the storm sewer through their key corridor so we aren't ripping up a new project. So that's really the driving force at how quickly this needs to be got to a point where the engineering is adequate to give them some key elevations. And then we'll make the determination of how to contract for that work through the Doberman corridor. And that's all I have. Very exciting news, and I'll take any questions.
Mr. Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make a comment about Jody and her staff. With respect to the DCEO infrastructure application, I spoke to a number of people out there in Big Rock and they didn't have a clue how to complete it. So Jody and her staff really not only walked them through it, probably completed the major portion of it for them. So they're very appreciative, and I'm very appreciative of Jody and her staff for all she did to get this grant for Big Rock, because they really did need it.
That's a lot of money, a lot of money.
Yeah. Almost 2 million.
Yeah. Mr. Frost?
Jody, who oversees the actual construction management? Is it a county? Does it become a county project or a village or district?
For the portion through the Doberman Road corridor, that's something we're going to be working with KDOT on, because it will likely be a contract through their office, because those funds are set aside as part of the Doberman Road project. So it's a different funding source. We do have within that $1.9 million funds for construction management. So the engineer that will be doing the design will likely be doing the construction management as well. But we will be assisting the Office of Community Reinvestment in reviewing the pay requests and being on site frequently during the construction of the project.
Yeah, I remember when in '96, when we had the 16-inch rain out
I
there,
can remember that.
that was the,
Oh, man.
that was the eye of the storm pretty much. And that blew out.
Strangely though, we did scan all of Paul Shook's slides, and the 93 flood in the village of Big Rock was actually potentially worse than the 96 flood.
Right.
So I know they got hit really bad in 89 and 93, and then again in 96. So it was a trifecta of storms.
Oh, it had to cancel the corn boil, see? So then this was really major.
Like, didn't the bridge washed out down there, and they had a hard time even finding the chunks of concrete?
Well, that was the beginning of all your work for the stormwater work in the county. The need. The need.
The need out there was identified certainly as part of those 3 storms. Yeah. And it did get press in the Tribune with the amount of flooding that occurred.
Mr. Chairman, this is Alan.
Mrs. Allen.
Thank you. Jody, I have this question. Yeah, it's really important to do this project, and putting together all these partnerships is amazing. Congratulations. Can I ask this question? I'm going to guess that the water that comes from the fields and flows into the creek eventually probably has the problem of, maybe silt, maybe chemicals that the farmers use. But I'm going to guess that 42-inch pipe coming off of a major highway is going to have salt and oil and all kinds of stuff like that.
Debbie.
Are there some plans to do something with that water before it goes into the creek?
Yes, included in the cost estimate is a best management practice. And so on top of the catch basins that'll be used, that'll have an area for sediment to collect. There will be oil and water separator and the ability to remove the sediment before it reaches the creek.
Any Dick Young techniques with long rooted plants and stuff like that?
It's challenging when you have only road runoff due to the amount of salt. There's not a lot of salt tolerant plants out there, but I know the Long Meadow Bridge has some great vegetation plans. And so we'll probably be looking at those to see what's worked out there and maybe replicating that out here.
That's great. Good stealing is always worth doing. Thanks.
Are there any more questions for Jody or comments? No more farm questions like that. Now, I'd like to talk to Janice Hill for grant announcements.
Sure. Happy to make presentation on grant announcements. Blair's bringing up my presentation. Okay, and I always like to star Kane County, because as Jody's mentioned, we are just kind of the star when it comes to bringing in grant funds. So, reminder that the last time we did the assessment of ag assessed land, which is land that is being used for agriculture today, we had about 4% or almost 5% in our urban area, in 29% in our central corridor, which is shown in the yellow, and 110,000 plus in our green, the area that's shown in green, the food farm and small town area. And, as we just heard, every single parcel is essential when it comes to farming. There's not one piece of land that isn't critical for food production. When we first started our program, we started researching in 1999, and the Farmland Protection Ordinance was approved in 2001. We were really just looking at that farmland protection. But today, our work goes beyond to include land practices, training and technical resources, and then our farmer and community engagement. Everything that we do at the staff level for all of our land in all locations really has to do with all of those areas. And you can see that, every presentation that we bring you, every grant that we apply for really involves all of that. When we talk to farmers today, we can't just talk about protecting the land. And in fact, the question that you just brought up to Jody in terms of, what can be done in terms of land practices on farms in Big Rock, I probably will have an answer to that for you in a minute. So there's our map. We have our flagship program for farmland protection on the left, and you can see it's true. We have our acres, over 6,000 acres, primarily in our ag area where we have most of our ag assessed land. But also we have our land practices, which we'll talk about in a minute. So when it comes to grant awards, we're very grateful that we have just received recommendation from the Riverboat Committee this week for an additional $500,000, which is what we requested to add to our $23 million investment that we've had from both NRCS and Kane County Board through the Riverboat over the last 21 years. So you have that investment that primarily has been in the small town and farm area and a little bit in the critical growth area, and that's gone for land protection. But now that we're participating in the RCPP Working Lands, Water and Wildlife Partnership, we're starting to get into land practices. Now, traditionally, that's been part of NRCS's role to work with farmers on land practices. What are they doing to protect soil and water? But with not enough resources at NRCS, they're asking those farmers that are coming in for land protection, what are they going to do for land practices? Are they going to do to protect water quality in their area and also the soil quality? So we're not just doing one thing, we're doing everything. So what I'll do with Jody's area of Big Rock, what we'll do is for the farmers that are asking for land protection, and those that are already protected, we'll prioritize them for land practices, both with NRCS and technical resources and funding, because now we also have that with our Donnelly grant for climate smart incentives. We have that $100,000 award that we're able to give to farmers directly and also incentivize with education and training. And it's important to remember that we just will have to hire contract services because NRCS does not provide enough of those services directly to all of our farmers that ask for them and need them. They're really looking for direction and assistance when they come in for support. So we're very lucky to be able to bring this year the additional $500,000 plus then the match from the federal government and also Donnelly grant. Okay, and this is really important because as you know, this is an ongoing process that doesn't necessarily line up with your process as a county board always for funding. So we're so grateful that you're able to work with us in advance to be able to show that we have that money in hand when we're able to apply for funding. And we are still the only county-based program in Illinois, so we're able to capture all of that money that comes to Illinois, which is awesome. And so you can see that we have 538 acres in process now for fiscal year 22 and 23, and 370 acres through the RCPP, both farmland protection programs, for a total of 908 acres altogether. And right in the middle there, we have our farm bill. So the farm bill is set to expire September of 2023. So that is right now in negotiations. I expect to continue to see the land protection piece to continue, and also much more money in the land practices section. Of course, climate is a major issue, and we expect more funding to come forth to farmers for that area. So it's important that we stay out in front for that as well. And so all of the programming that you've been able to and support us really helps too in terms of being able to capture other funding beyond our riverboat funding and federal NRCS funding for the farmers directly. Our RCPP will extend beyond 2025. So it's a little bit different because it does extend beyond the farm bill. And we hope that this is part of a statewide program, but we hope they'll be able to reapply for the following year.
Are you going to have a meeting of the Farmland Protection Commission?
We will, right.
It'll be the first meeting in how many years?
It's been a while. I don't know exactly how many
3
years.
years, 4 years?
Yeah, because we had approval for all of the farms that are now in engagement from this grouping, but we will be able to dig in a little bit to talk to the Farmland Protection Commission about practices and some other specific things that we need guidance from the commission on for this. So I'm hoping late August.
I know Barb would like to see him.
Absolutely. We need her guidance as well, very much. So keeping an eye on USDA funding is a big part of what we do. Really digging in and learning how they allocate funding. It's critical to being able to capture the money that we can. And some of this happened quite a bit with COVID. In particular, there were special allocations. I think you heard from Northern Illinois Food Bank. We know that there was a lot of funding that came out, particularly during that time for farmers. And we were able to capture some of that within our county network. And also this particular one, we had our eye on for a while. There's also a category called discretionary funding. And this urban agriculture funding has been distributed throughout all of the categories within USDA. And it's picked up throughout. That print is rather fine, but you can see it's not just conservation funding, but throughout all the various categories. We had our eye on this, applied once. We were not accepted, but we kept our eye on it. And so we had an idea. We knew that we wanted to think about our urban food production. And in fact, you had at your last meeting, all of our award winners that were here, all the farmers that are growing local food, right, for the areas that most need it. Can we get that? Oops. There we go. And we got it. And I have to give a big shout out to Tony Ferrugia. I know he's there on the screen. If you want to wave, Tony. Tony put together this grant for us. And we were able to capture almost $300,000 from this category for what we are calling the Kane County Food and Agriculture Accelerator. We're able to bring training and technical resources to all of our local food farms and that are throughout the county in all of our urban, critical, and small town and areas. This will be very, very important to be able to bring more local food production and direct it to areas of local low access for food, which is really important, and link those together. So one of the things I think that's really important, every time that we're able to capture money like this, almost $300,000, the reason that we're able to do this, the reason that we're able to capture farmland protection money, all of this are, I think, three things. The government structure. First of all, we have this agriculture committee. You meet monthly. We're able to show that, and that's recognized. It's very, very rare. I don't know if there's any other county in the state of Illinois that has a standing agriculture committee. We have our two ordinances, the farmland protection and growing for Kane ordinances. Again, not matched anywhere in the state of Illinois. And then our financial capability and capacity, I have to give a shout out to our finance committee because, and our finance department, because without that, we could not show the capacity to manage the level of grants. And I'm sure Jody could say the same thing every time for KDOT as well. We always are able to show that. And then our partnerships, of course, Farm Bureau at the top, both our county Farm Bureau and our state Farm Bureau, having those partnerships really make a difference. And then right down the line, Northern Illinois Food Bank, Illinois Farmers Market Association, Compeer Financial. Compeer has been very generous to us as well. We have a couple of grants with them right now. And then Illinois Agri-Food Alliance, of course, and 7 Generations Ahead, we have another grant out with them right now. And then finally, your support in terms of our response time to be able to apply for these grants. When we are able to apply for the grant, we can show that we have that money in hand, because you have about 30 days, maybe 40 days to put together a grant, 45 days, sometimes 60. So there's, you have to be prepared. And sometimes they don't officially make the announcement. Sometimes you have the idea of that pending. So it's a rigorous process, as you were just commending Jody on her help with that Rebuild Illinois. It's very rigorous. Not many municipalities can even, prepare for those. It really takes a county effort. So, and with that, I just wanted to, and Mark may want to add to what I'm going to say for the next and final slide, is that I have my eye on one other one coming up. Oh, and I have 2 more slides. I just wanted to say another thing too, is understanding the intricacies of how USDA funds. And this is something that I hadn't realized, is that they divide the entire nation into 2 categories, what they consider rural and what they consider urban. And for our county, that we're pretty much divided right in half. The area in the dark there is urban, and the area in the light tan is the rural area. And USDA rural eligibility is one category, and everything in the tan is another. And our county is divided right in half. So if you're on one side of essentially Route 47, you're eligible for one level of funding. And if you're on the other side, you're not. Really puts us in a predicament because, of course, our farms are on both sides. So, but I do have my eye on another possible grant, and Mark and I are looking at this, something to be aware of. They have not announced the date yet. Some grants are not worth applying for, but this one may be because of its funding. It is essentially a 2-for-1. It comes out of the rural development category. So that means it would be eligible for our farms that were in that lighter tan area. In other words, west of Route 47. It would allow us to create an agriculture innovation center and create funding that could go for business development, feasibility plans, marketing, value chain, and grants directly to farmers for less than $5,000. For our 4 top categories of corn, soy, wheat, and specialty crops. So as an example, you can see the funding on the right. If we were to put in, we had a total project budget of $1 million and we put in $333,000, we could get a match of $667,000 for a total project budget of $1 million. So that's for a 2-year grant. So they announce these usually every year. They haven't done the fiscal year 22 yet, which is rare because their fiscal year ends in September. So September 30th, I think. So either they won't do it this year, or they'll do it next year, or they'll do it very soon, and it'll be quick. So anyway, that's just something to keep an eye on. This is not anything that's budgeted, but just to let you know that this is out there. It's something that we have never looked at before. It would be, I think, kind of hard to pass up.
Yeah, thank you, Janice. Janice and the team do a great job of bringing these grant opportunities to us. And this one, in terms of the county board's local match, it cannot be matched with other federal funds. So the ARPA funds wouldn't be available for that. But we would be if they, once they open the application period, we may need to move quickly on being able to demonstrate that we have our match dedicated. And one opportunity for that would be out of the riverboat funds. It could be a special allocation out of the reserves that would be reserved only if we got the grant. But that would be one way to demonstrate the match. The other is we have some other moving pieces with our economic development fund, which is also funded through the riverboat. But we have some pending grant applications out there for the RISE planning grant and some other things that may help free up some money that's available through our Fund 400. So just kind of wanted to give you a heads up, and if the date gets announced, we may be coming pretty quickly with a plan on how to, reserve that match. But it's even better than the farmland protection match of dollar per dollar. This is a 2-for-1, and could really go a long way towards helping our growing community add a value and really give them some of the business supports that will help them do that. So thank you, Janice and the team. I'm happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, we mainly wanted to give you a heads up on that.
Leonard's got a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Janice or Mark, whoever wants to comment on this. I like the idea of applying for a riverboat grant on this rural development grant, the 2-to-1. In the last 8 years that I've served on the riverboat grant committee, every year we've matched what you've requested. And you're the only organization, farmland preservation, that had a matching amount that they would receive. That's always been a major reason why we want to prioritize the farmland preservation. I think with this other grant, though, that is coming up with the 2-to-1 match, as Mark had mentioned, I think it is something that you definitely have to send in an application on it to the Riverboat Grant Committee. And I feel very confident that we would approve that. So thank you very much for your work. And once again, you do a great job and we appreciate it. And with your grant capabilities, you just stand out so far and above all the other requests that it's a very easy request to comply with. So thank you.
If there's nothing else, we want to hear from Matt Hensley. Matt's going to be live.
Mr. Chairman, I have a meeting upstairs with Madam Chair and KDOT, so I'll have to excuse myself. 11 o'clock.
All right.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could have one other comment related to all these grant announcements. And that is we are continuing to work with Peter Phillips and Jarrett and the committee on the ARPA funds. Back when we put in our department applications, one of the 5 applications was for our agricultural growers program. Had a great meeting this past week with the team to understand eligibility. But also in the interim, we have been receiving these grants. So Matt Tansley and Janice and Tony and I are looking at what we originally applied for, what's emerging from ARPA with the proper coding and eligibility, but also looking to how can we best use the ARPA funds to enhance, supercharge, whatever the grants that we now have in hand since we first applied. So we're really excited about the opportunities to build upon these grants that we've been receiving over the last 9 months. So thank you.
Right? Is Matt going to be live?
Good morning, everyone. I did want to share just one brief update this morning about a new training program. This is offered by the University of Illinois Extension. And I did just want to call some attention to this because I think the timing is really good, along with some of the state legislation that's come through recently, as well as some changes here at the local level that's really going to make it easier and a good time for local cottage food businesses to start or to grow their operations. So this training is specifically designed for at-home food startup businesses. And you might recall that the state of Illinois passed the Home to Market Act earlier this year. And really it was designed to help create some new opportunities for home business, for cottage food operators to kind of reach new markets. So this training could really be a good introduction and a segue into cottage food operations. And so it covers a number of topics that are relevant for cottage food operators, including food safety, refrigerated and frozen foods, food preservation, packaging and labeling. The course fee is only $25, and it's entirely self-paced. So once you sign up, you can go through the trainings at your own speed, and you always have access to them. You can come back at any time and check them out. Just a few notes on the state. So the state of Illinois does have a requirement that cottage food operators complete a certified food protection manager's course. Now, I just want to make it clear that this training offered by Extension is not a substitute for that course. So any operator would still have to go through that accredited course in order to become certified in the state of Illinois. And then there are also some requirements with the health department. There's a form that folks need to fill out to become registered with the county. I'll also add that there's also some language in the county's zoning ordinance for home occupations. So that would affect those businesses as well. And that mainly just kind of spells out, like the limits on customer vehicles and commercial vehicles that are allowed on the sites of these home occupations. And we're also looking at, as part of the zoning text amendments that Mark mentioned, is potentially adjusting the definition of a home occupation for agricultural businesses. So that would hopefully provide a little bit more flexibility in terms of what cottage food operators can do, how they can sell and distribute their products, and just make it a little bit easier for them. So we're going to be sharing this in the next edition of the Growing for Kane newsletter, just to kind of help get the word out to our community of farmers and help support the sector. And that's all I've got.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, Alan?
Oh, Debbie Allen, please.
Matt, can I ask this question? How expensive is that accreditation course? And is it something that we could help with if people are going, oh my God, that's a really expensive course that I have to take?
That is a good question. I don't have the cost of that accredited course, but we've, with our Growing for Kane programs, we've certainly talked about using funds to offset that. I think, Chris, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, so I actually had to run through that course as part of becoming a member of or employee of the Northern Illinois Food Bank. That it's similar to the cottage program. You can it's all remote, but the cost is $175 for that accreditation.
Thanks.
Oh, a question answered right away. Isn't this great?
And a source to help. How about that?
We could look for scholarships, couldn't we? Once completed, we could have a scholarship and do that. Any other questions for Matt? All right. If there's no other questions, do we have any new business? Do we want to?
I've got a question, actually.
Oh, all
Mr.
right,
Chair.
all right.
We have Mark here. We haven't heard from, and it's not in our hands anymore, but the food hub, the food hub for Kane County. It kind of has gone dormant, so I don't know if there's any updates, not asking you to give it to us today, but if there's any updates you could bring us in the future at our next meeting, maybe, and unless there is an update you have off the top of your head.
It'd probably be best if we gave some thought to it and gave an update, not just on where things have been, where they are now, but also, where we're seeing it going. So kind of what's changed in the whole food system.
Yeah.
And how we can adapt to be current. So,
Okay.
but thank you for the question. We'd be happy to do that next month.
Thank you. That's it.
Stump
Mr.
the
Chair-
director, if that's what you were doing.
Mr. Chairman Allen,
Debbie, please.
it just happens that at an earlier meeting, and I think it was Energy and Environment, there was some discussion about how development is the overseer of staff for both E&E and also for agriculture. And I jumped into that black hole saying that we had, I think it was Chairman McConaughey had broken out E&E, figuring that those processes that are going on in the county with our environmental sustainability plan and all of the tremendous work that Jody does with her staff, not just water resources, but also all the recycling and so on, that there wasn't always time in development to address those issues. And so it was important to break out a new committee so that those organizations and those projects would have time to be talked about and congratulated and vetted and enjoyed and spread around the county. And then the same was true about agriculture. Development just has so much on its plate that agriculture always came last. And so there's, not the opportunity to talk about the great work that our staff does and going and finding money and preserving. I mean, we like to think of Kane County as an agricultural county. And if we as a government are supporting that, and Janice has already gone through the drill where she shows up on someone's doorstep and says, "Hi, I'm from the government, I'm here to help you," and has already broken through that barrier so that our farmers actually do see us as helpful. So I just think it's important to note that that these two additional committees are both a part of development and are a breakout of development for very specific good reasons. And both committees have been, have had wonderful staff and great committee members who are devoted to them. And so I think it's a really successful way for the county to operate. And Mr. Chairman, I wanted to congratulate you because you're such a big part of that. Thanks for letting me vent.
Thank you. There's a resolution to put the reports on file. What do you call that?
Leonard so moves.
Leonard so moves. Is any
Alan
objections? There's no objections. I have a question for you. For the question for this month, how many meals does the Northern Illinois Food Bank do per month now?
400,000.
Chris, you got the answer?
400,000?
Who said that? Caius, good for you. 400,000 meals a month. All right, somebody's listening.
I'm listening. Good work.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn, Mr. Leonard?
Leonard moves to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, I think, don't you have to do the vote on the records,
Reports.
the reports put on file?
Oh, not if we ask for
Oh,
unanimous
It was
consent.
unanimous consent.
Okay, never
Something
mind.
Shepro taught us. Unanimous consent. So we do need a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
Been made. All in favor, say aye.
Sanchez,
Sanchez seconds.
take that one.
Aye.
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 We're done.
Thank you.
Hey, Jody, you mentioned something called Tyler.